In the poem, The Ballad of Edie Barrow, the title creates a sense of loving and expectation. We expect from the word ballad that it's going to be a story of love and romance, when in reality it's far from it. The purpose of the story is to represent the fact that the Gentile boy and Edie had a purely physical relationship, even though Edie began to see it as more than physical. She fell in love with him when he was just doing it for sex. Through this, Edie is kind of impressionable. She sees the relationship as more than it is, or maybe she knows what it is, but it's just that she doesn't realize it as much as, or she refuses to accept the reality of the situation. And this is part of why it's all at night. The boy wants to remain secretive of his love, and so a lot of it takes place. A lot of their affair takes place during the night. So a lot of the verbs are very forceful in the story, like, or at least away out of her control. Like, she fell in love. She was taken to the summer house home. The falling of fall. It's all very out of her control almost. She wishes she had more control over it than she does. It becomes a lot more tense towards the end as she's realizing the affair is ending. There's the hateful son. She wants to kill the Gentile girl who's marrying him. It all becomes more tense as she's seeing the relationship end, and she doesn't want it to because she still loves him. So because of this, the tone overall is loving at the beginning, but it shifts to more resentful. She's upset about how the relationship is going, and she wishes she could prevent what's happening, but she really can't. So at the beginning, with the title, The Ballad of Edie Barrow, once again, ballad represents a love song where you kind of expect a romance, but also Edie Barrow is a very religious, not religious, it's a very Jewish name. And the very first line says, I fell in love with a Gentile boy. Gentile means non-Jewish, so at the very beginning we're kind of distinguishing between the two. We know that she's Jewish and he's, or at least we can assume she's Jewish based on the fact she'd mentioned that he's Gentile in the first place, and that Edie Barrow is a Jewish name. And we know that he's not Jewish. So there's already a distinction between the two, and this could also create tension as interfaith relationships can also often be frowned upon. But also, once again, fell in love kind of takes the power away from her. It was accidental, it was impromptu. And the mention that he's a boy kind of maybe doesn't represent that he's naive, but it represents that he's immature. He's not, especially how he acted in the poem. It was very immature of him to act like this. The mention that he's all creamy and golden fair feels almost angelic and young and beautiful. It's like she reveres him for the way he looks, and she loves him because he's beautiful and fair and golden. It almost feels angelic, really, and even innocent. Maybe it's sort of a looks can deceive sort of thing, where he seems innocent, but in the end he ends up hurting her. In the mention, he looked deep and long in my long black eyes, and he played with my long black hair. In these two lines alone, long is mentioned 3 times, which could represent the sense that even though the relationship took place over the summer, it was still long to her, and it allowed her to fall in love, and it represents the fact that it was still long to her, even though it was a very short affair. But also, he looked deep and long in my long black eyes. We don't really consider long eyes to be very long, so it could be like the cliche, like, why the long face? She's sad. Maybe she's sad because she knows the relationship couldn't last. Another thing, he looked deep and long. Looked is kind of an odd word choice here. It doesn't feel very romantic. Realistically, you'd maybe say gazed or stared even though that one doesn't really work as well. Gaze feels more romantic, whereas looked feels superficial. He's just looking at her on the outside. Which is kind of the first indication that maybe this is just a physical relationship instead of an actual loving one. Also, the mention of her black eyes and black hair sets a precedent of juxtaposition between the two once again, where he's golden, she's black, or at least darker black haired and black eyed. So the two are very different people right from the outset. He took me away to his summer house home. Once again, makes a sense of she doesn't have the power. He's taking her to his summertime house. And the mention of summertime house specifies not only that this is a summertime relationship, but that he's wealthy enough to own a summertime house, which could imply that he's noble, which is mentioned in the next line when she says, "He was wondrous, wealthy was he." The fact that he was wondrous to her could maybe show her reverence to him. She considers him wondrous and magnificent, and that could be due to the fact that he's wealthy. Maybe he's noble or a prince. He could be in a position of power, and that's why she sees him as wondrous and awe-inspiring. He was wealthy, so he could be noble, and that could be part of the reason why this love affair wouldn't work. And there, in the hot black drapes of night, the mention of the hot black drapes of night is very visual. Black drapes, drapes in general, are like curtains. They block us from being able to see, so it kind of creates a sense that people can't see what's going on. It's secret. They're a symbol of secrecy in their love affair. They don't want people to know, which also means night is like a veil for them. He whispered, "Good lovers are we." Whispering, although it could be perceived as loving in this context, which could be what Edie perceives it as, because she seems to romanticize it, it also could mean secrecy, as he's trying to keep quiet about it. He's trying to keep the relationship secret, which could be why it's at night. Also, the mention of good lovers, the fact that he's mentioning lovers shows that he sees it as a physical thing. He's not in love with her, but he's loving her, which implies that it's physical, it's superficial. Close was our flesh through the winking hours. The fact that it mentions flesh feels vain and on the outside. Flesh is just on what the outside is. There's no flesh on the inside, so flesh implies that he loves her for her body. He doesn't really love her. He just wants a physical relationship. And the winking hours implies it's once again late in the night, which adds to the secrecy and the fact that they don't want people to know. Closely and sweetly entwined may seem romantic, and that's probably how Edie perceives it too, because she mentions it as closely and sweetly. She seems happy with the way it was working out, but also the fact that they're so close together, they could be remaining small and hiding from the view of the outside people, because it's a secret and people can't know they're having the relationship, because she's Jewish and because he's in a position of power, presumably. Love did not guess in the tight-packed dark. Love did not guess implies that they've done this before and they're used to it and they know how it works. So even though it was just a short romance, they must have been doing it a lot and having a lot of sex. So it could be that they knew what was happening, even like disregarding the fact that it was in the dark. The tight-packed dark is also tensile imagery. It feels hard to get through and thick. It adds to the secrecy, but also it makes a sense that it's impervious. You can't get through it. It conveys a sense that they're safe behind the dark and no one can see it. It was a flesh of a varying kind. Once again, mentions their differences. He was fair. She was darker haired. So they're like very different people. They're interfaith. So it's pretty clear that they're not meant to be together, at least as far as societal norms go. And also the repetition of flesh adds the fact that it was physical. Scarletly back when the hateful sun. Scarletly could be an allusion to the Scarlet Letter, in which Hester is a woman who had sex with another man during her marriage, and she's cast out for it, and it's all about adultery, which could play into the shunned sex theme that this poem has. Back when the hateful sun, here's where she starts resenting the outside world. It feels like it's us against the world. She can't stand the rest of the world for what it's doing to her, breaking them up. The sun comes up and the night ends, so there goes their veil of secrecy and the fact that they can love each other. Once again, came bragging across the town. It's personifying the sun as something that's bragging and hateful towards them. The sun wants their relationship to end, when in reality it's more just the coming up the sun is ending the day, so it's ending the night and bringing the day, so their secrecy has to end. And it also implies something's going to happen in the day, which it does, in that he gets married. She says, "And I could have killed the gentle Gentile." The fact that she mentions the gentle Gentile shows that she knows that the woman is not guilty in loving him, but she still says, "And I could have killed her," which is a big tone shift towards her hating the other woman, even though she knows the other woman didn't do anything wrong. Although she still portrays her as malicious when she says, "Who waited to strap him down." It's like she's waiting to ruin their relationship, and that's how Edie sees it. It's the woman coming in and messing up what they had with each other, and so she sees her as malicious for that. He will wed her come falling a fall. The repetition of fall, both here and through the entire poem, shows a sense of helplessness, as well as a season change, in that it's changing from summer to fall, and that's the end of their romance. That's how it ends, and there's nothing she can do about it. It's falling, it's happening, she can't do anything. So, like, you can't control the seasons. Also, the fact that he's wedding her shows that he cares about her more than he ever did Edie. And she will be queen of his rest. Queen, once again, ensures his nobility, and then the rest is kind of like he's in love with her, she's his rest, whereas Edie is the queen of his summer house storm. So she's the mistress. She's the summer romance that wasn't really love. Summer's past, it's ended. It was passionate like a storm. Storms are common in summer, but it was over. It was passionate while it lasted, and the storm kind of is visual imagery. It conveys a sense of passion, but in reality it was just purely physical, which is why a hungry tooth is in her breast. It's heartache. She longs for his affection, but she never got it. Overall, the name of it is rather ironic because it wasn't really a love story, even though she kind of perceived it as that, as well as the fact that there's a lot of repetition in it, which kind of shows the entire relationship was repetitive. It was just about sex, and so that's about it.